case you don't know, you are in the statewide headquarters of the Florida Historical Society. This is our Library of Florida History, this is where we have our archive, which has thousands of rare and out-of-print books. We have maps dating back to the 1500s, postcards, photographs, genealogical information, all sorts of great resources. And our Educational Resources Coordinator, Ben DiBiase, isn't here today, but if you contact him, he can help you do all sorts of great research here. This is also, as I said, our statewide headquarters. It's where we do our outreach all around the state. We're proudly based here in Brevard County in this wonderful 1939 WPA era post office, but we do outreach all over the state, from Pensacola to Key West. We have all sorts of programs, such as our Florida Historical Society Press, which publishes about 10 books a year on a wide variety of topics. Coming out just next week, you can pre-order it if you like, is the definitive biography of Lawton Childs, called Walkin' Lawton, written by John Dos Passos Coggin. And it is, surprisingly, there is not a biography of Lawton Childs yet. This is the first one, and the author, John Coggin, did over 100 oral history interviews, spoke with the family of Lawton Childs, his co-workers, politicians, all sorts of folks. It's been endorsed by people like John Cage and Brinkley, the author of Cronkite. So lots of excitement about that book. So we have the Florida Historical Society Press. We're the proud hosts of the Florida Public Archaeology Network that does the East Central region, which does a whole series of talks here. In fact, you can join us again next Friday night at 7. Dr. Annette Snapp will be here. She's the Regional Director for FPAN's Southwest region, and she'll be talking about Fort Shackelford. So please join us for that next Friday night at 7. We also manage the historic Rossiter House Museum and Gardens down in O'Galley. Carrie Rossiter, in 1921, at the age of 23, took over her father's Standard Oil Agency just a few months after women received the right to vote in this country. So she has an amazing story, which we preserve down there at the historic Rossiter House Museum. So all sorts of great activities and educational outreach. You may have heard our radio program, Florida Frontiers, the weekly radio magazine of the Florida Historical Society. It airs all over the state on public radio stations. Here locally, it airs on 90.7 WMFE Thursday evenings at 6:30, and again Sunday afternoons at 4. So we hope you'll catch that as well. But although we are the statewide historical society, we're not supported by the state. We do depend on membership support. So as always, if you're not a member, I urge you to become one today. And if you do become a member today, we can provide you with one of these great tote bags. We also have them in green if you think this looks too much like FSU colors. We also have it in green. With your membership, we'll also throw in a $40 book, which really pays for the membership. It's a history of Florida, the classic Tabot history of Florida. As a member, you will also get 4 issues of our Florida Historical Quarterly, the acclaimed academic journal that has really fascinating articles on a wide variety of topics, as well as our newsletter. Keep you posted on all of the great activities that we have going on here at the Library of Florida History and throughout the state. And of course, the best thing you get out of membership is the knowledge that you are helping to preserve Florida history and our educational outreach. I want to tell you about one more program that we're going to have just coming up a week from today. There's a flyer on your chair about it, but we're going to have a roundtable discussion called Literary Perspectives on Florida History and Culture. We're going to be celebrating, this year is the 75th anniversary of Zora Neale Hurston's classic novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, and it's the 70th anniversary of Stetson Kennedy's Palmetto Country. And we're going to be celebrating both of those books. We're going to have N.Y. Nefiri here from the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community, and also Sandra Parks, who's an author and activist and Stetson Kennedy's widow. He just passed last year, as well as Saki O'Sullivan from Rollins College, who is a professor of literature and an expert on Florida literature in particular. And these are two very important books. Zora Neale Hurston, of course, arguably the most significant cultural figure to come from Central Florida, writer, folklorist, and anthropologist. And she worked under Stetson Kennedy when they both worked for the WPA's Florida Writers Project. And Stetson Kennedy, in the late 1930s and early 1940s, went all over the state doing interviews with a big recorder the size of a table, talking to Greek sponge divers over in Tarpon Springs, and African-American turpentine still workers, and Latin cigar rollers in Key West and Tampa. It went all over the state documenting this history and culture. So it should be a really fascinating program talking about these two very important literary figures and how they preserved Florida history for us. So I hope you'll join us for that 2 o'clock next Saturday, just a week from today. But again, I encourage your membership in the Florida Historical Society. We do other wonderful things like have an annual meeting and symposium all around the state. It's usually in a different Florida town. In recent years, we've been in Tampa, Jacksonville, Pensacola, St. Augustine. And next year, though, we're doing something really special because 2013, of course, is the 500th anniversary of the naming of our state by Juan Ponce de Leon, who landed somewhere pretty close by here along the east central coast of Florida. And our annual meeting and symposium is going to commemorate this event. Will be on a cruise ship. We're going to take a cruise ship out of Port Canaveral, go down to the Bahamas, do some historic tours there, and the whole time we're on board ship, we'll be hearing fascinating presentations. And it's not just about Spanish colonial Florida. Of course, people were here living in Florida for between 12,000 and 14,000 years before the Spanish arrived. So many of our presentations will be on the native culture of Florida and the indigenous people that were here when the Spanish arrived and the impact that the Spanish arrival had on the people who were already here. So that will be an important part of what will be going on. But we're going to be sailing back from the Bahamas, taking special historic tours there. But we'll be sailing up in roughly the route that Ponce de Leon took 500 ye're before and pulling back into Port Canaveral. And in fact, Ponce de Leon himself may be on board. So we're going to have lots of fun, but our academic, scholarly, paper presentations will be intact. And we'll be looking at the entire history of Florida from many different angles. So we're glad to provide you with information about that as well. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, who I'm sure will be giving us a fascinating talk about the history of the Seminole Indians. Wille Johns is a Seminole tribe historian, and he's the outreach coordinator for the Atatiki Museum. And if you haven't been to the Atatiki Museum down near Clewiston, it's a fascinating place. It preserves the Seminole tribe history and culture. But Wille Johns is here today to talk to us, and we're glad to have him here. Welcome. Thank you.
Good to be here on a Saturday afternoon when we could be staying home watching the ball game. Get to come to a lecture. You know, I thought it was funny. He was talking about the naming of Florida. And last month I did a talk at St. Augustine before the 500 group, and I was telling them, you know, Native people, they have a name for Florida too. And the Creek people especially called it Kampushki. And what that means is the land of the sharp land. The sharp land. So when we meet our brothers in Oklahoma, they always approach us and say, Kampushki Duacha. And what they're saying is, are y'all from the sharp land? Because their creek and our creeks, you know, our language, you know how culturally when they're out west, there seems to be more southern accent, and ours seems to be more fast, the language, the Creek language. So I asked for, how many would y'all be for dialects in our culture. There's the Miccosukee branch, and they're further south in Miami area, and they're very traditional. Used to be anyway. In the older days, but as modernicity hits our tribes, and we're trying to take those PlayStations away from our kids and put bow and arrows back in their hands and give them knives instead of, the key to the four-wheeler, and we didn't have that when I was growing up, and we walked and we ran, we rode horses, and that was our transportation when I was a kid. But now, how it is today, kids, they want the modern things, especially those new smartphones, and stuff. They're too smart for the phone, or the phone's too smart for you. We're an ancient people, like we were told, 10,000 years. My people once roamed this place and chased mammoth around and saber-toothed tigers and the Ice Age, and so we evolved through the woodland period, and then through the European conflict, which we face every day now, It's an ongoing process ever since the first discoverer, whoever he was. I always say, where did those native people come from? Some people said spaceships, because look at the Aztecs. Their design looked just like space guys. That's where they came from. Or did they cross that Bering Strait over there? And the Eskimos said, no, not me. I've been there all my life, But what worries me is there's a butte in South Dakota, and it's called Bear Butte. And the legend around that Bear Butte said that all the tribes once gathered there, and they all worshiped Hisagamishi, means breath giver in our language. So, that doggone creek or that bridge, it's real close. But the Mayan people said, no, y'all didn't come from there. No, y'all, we're all here, so who knows, At least we're still alive and breathing today. And it took us a long time to get here, seems like. But, yeah, Europeans, they've been rough on native people, even at the get-go. I remember visiting Plymouth Rock, and I said, you sure that's the rock? Because haven't y'all been there? They got this big old rock with a cage around it. That's so native people won't blow it up, I guess. But those guys on Martha's Vineyard, I think they got it made, those Indians over there. That put me a big old casino right there on those dunes. And come on, boys, let's play. So, the conflict, the Revolutionary War, the Europeans brought a lot of things to our people, and the technology was one of the best inventions. One thing that really revolutionized the natives' world was a knife, was the metal knife. We could skin our buffaloes, we could skin our deer better now. We didn't know, we had stone knives, so they didn't always break, oh, here I get a new one, but now we got a metal knife, and all we gotta do is hit the rock or hit the steel and do our business. And the musket, it revolutionized everything for us. Now that we have a musket, we can shoot a deer, 100 yards away instead of sneaking up on him 30 yards with a bow and hope like heck you hit it, Now we're skilled hunters. And the pots and pans, now we're starting to eat fried food, They always blame McDonald's, but it was those early Europeans that brought the big old pots and frying pans that started frying food that got us. And man, we were, native guys, they were lucky too, all they got to do was hunt, fish, hang out in the village after a good meal until the white man came, and then he started chopping down forests and planting our fields and making crops grow better, and all of a sudden native guys' wives sees them, say, hey, how come you can't do that? I said, well, I'm a hunter, I'm a farmer, I'm a warrior. So, yeah, that messed up our lives, so now we don't even get to golf anymore. We're too busy pulling the slot machine, though. So our world's changing. You can see it right here today. And the Europeans brought the horses. The Spaniards brought the horses, and they brought big livestock animals, and they brought the bananas, the oranges. So they're not such bad guys after all, I guess. After they almost decimated all the natives here in Florida. So I guess that's a good trade-off. I don't know. We'll have to check on that later. But, yeah. Our world has been rocked. But we've really done really well also. Even it seemed bad. We were always our worst enemy because we never liked each other's, from one village to the other. We always have war parties, especially my group, the Creek people, very hostile. They couldn't stand it. Right after the Revolutionary War, they started a fight among themselves. The Red Sticks and the White Sticks War, and finally they sent a general by the name of Andrew Jackson to put it out. And he did, and plus he used the White Sticks to support, to rub out the Red Sticks. And the worst thing that ever happened to the Native people was he became president, especially the Eastern Indians, because when he became president, he passed a law of 1830, Removal Act, which meant that Native people east of the Mississippi River from Maine to Key West had to vacate. And so some left, a lot hid out. The Cherokees hid out. A lot of them left. Some left early because they knew it was going to happen. safe here. And, we're from the southeastern coordinates of Florida, like South Carolina, parts of North Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, something like the Southeastern Conference. That's the Seminoles. But so those were the original homelands of the Muskogee people. But as they broke down after the Revolutionary War, some of them were neutral with the colonists, and others joined with the British. Because the British always gave away pretty stuff, You know how the British always dressed, and they were all good. And we like those too, and they give them to us so if we'd help them fight. So, but a lot of the Creek people didn't. They just sat back and watched, enjoyed the fight. And so a lot of Seminoles started coming into Florida early. So with the Miccosukkees, early Creeks, and when we came here, we discovered that there was large herds of cattle just wandering free, especially around in the Alachua counties, up in Gainesville, hundreds, some says 10,000 head, that a lot of the Creek chiefs took over. And they did business with the Spanish government for almost 100 years, selling cattle with Spanish people in Cuba. But they hated each other. I don't know how that worked, because there was one Sea Coffee cowkeeper. I'm part of the cowkeepers. He's a Creek. I'm from that group, the Oconee. And he hated them so bad that the Spanish people, that he even on his deathbed offered somebody to revenge his death, because he was 10 short, killing 1,000 Spanish people. So he wanted somebody to go out and kill 10 of them for him so he could go on to the happy hunting grounds. So we hear legends like that, and 450th coming up, and it was once a British town. A lot of people, my people especially, they're offended when they hear that there might be that some of our people were slave owners, the Creek Indians, and there was quite a bit, because we did what y'all did, y'all put them to work, we put them to work, and so we bought them at the slave auction in St. Augustine, trade cattle for them. And it's kind of surprisingly that we kept ours even after the Civil War, after the great, the 80s, the 90s, the land boom. They stayed with us till the 1930s, stayed with our families, helping, because they couldn't go nowhere. They didn't know any different. My great grandmother, I found her in the census roll, and my great uncle, she was under his name, and I guess the census roll person asked, "Who's that?" In my language, he said, "My mother, I'm white." And so the census roll person phonetically wrote it, "I'm white." And the she was with Osceola when he was captured under a white flag. She was a young girl. So she's come through all the way across Florida into the Everglades. So all she's ever known is war. The first, well, not the first, but the second, the third Seminole War. She saw the Civil War. I would love to talk to her. And then World War I came. She was still alive. And then she saw Florida grow. And in her native way, I would just love to sit and just pick her brain and see what happened, what was going on. And I guess, because of their health and the way they didn't eat good during the war, because they were running, eating a lot of protein, and she didn't have her children till like in the 1870s. Because that's when my grandmother was born. And her husband was born in 1875, which is my granddaddy, who I'm named after. So, war's rough, tough, but it's amazing. We're always talking about the economy. We're $4 trillion broke or something like that. Back then the American economy at the beginning of the Seminole Wars was somewhere around 25 million. But at the end of the third Seminole War, it was 30 million. And most of it was spent fighting the war. Of course, that era there, it's very interesting and very, very, there's a lot of new things that happened. A lot of new guns were developed to fight a war, like the repeater, which was used on my people at a lighthouse in Jupiter. And it repelled us long enough for us to get our own, The only problem was it was a cardboard cartridge, so you had to keep them dry. And if you're, out in the wilderness, the frontier, you got wet, so you was better off with the powder horn. Keep your powder dry, they always say. So it got too tough, but General Worth was the general during the Third Seminole War, and he decided to call it quits. And this is the interesting part of he drawed a detail and put it in that anybody that was wounded, shot, killed, whatever, in a battle, their bodies will be exhumed and brought to St. Augustine. There's a law, and so they sent out details throughout Florida to all the forts and redug up all the graves that they could find. The soldiers that were killed, all the way from Okeechobee into Naples and Fort Myers, all the graves. So when you go to St. Augustine today, in the back of that cemetery, there's three monuments. Look like pillars, look like it's pyramids. Have you ever seen them, or you ever been to St. Augustine? Well, the Masons built those. Y'all know the Masons? Yeah, they built those, and so there's over maybe 6,000 skeletons in there, and one woman, and it's older than Arlington, but they would not let it happen. because now Arlington is older than St. Augustine, because some historian said that it was the wrong fencing that went around it. So it changed the dating on it, so. But really, St. Augustine, that cemetery is a lot older than Arlington. So, we made it, we survived the Seminole War, then we were left alone, and we went into the boom period where you start seeing this stuff starting to come out in the Miami area, because a little Episcopal nun who was retiring, and she was visiting her sister in Miami, and she saw these Indian ladies coming in, and they looked pretty drab, and they needed to update their wares, and so she being artistic enough, she started teaching them how to sew, and so she asked this sewing machine maker by the name of Singer to donate 10 sewing machines that he couldn't sell. They weren't selling then, so she got him to donate them, and he did. And Singer, we started out with Singer sewing machines, those ones that sits on the table, and I'm lefty, so you can sew this way on the platform. Now when my mom was alive, she had one of the big fancy ones that you did your foot with, you know. Yeah. So y'all know what I'm talking about. So they started developing tourism wear, you know, and we're not in a reservation till like 1908. We developed our first reservation in Hollywood, Florida. I seen the papers on it. It goes, the reservation for the indigents. And sure enough, they brought all their sick people there. And sure enough, in a couple of years, we almost filled that cemetery up, because we did have some sick people, I guess, you know, because of, malaria, and we had all those, I don't know, just different common out diseases that were out there, and so people started pulling out, going to Big Cypress, you know, because they thought that place was contaminated, and everybody stopped seeing the medicine man. That was the thing too. So everybody started getting Christianized, you know, and started believing, you know, pray. Don't use that medicine man's medicine. That's voodoo, you know. You don't do that, you know. God will spank you. So they preached fire and brimstone. A lot of Native people got saved, I guess, and but a lot of them went to their native ways. But talking about I skipped over Deaconess DeBell. She brought us to the forefront with the tourism, kind of dress up our. And I noticed in the Episcopal Church in California a couple years ago, she was canonized. So I don't know what that is, but it put her deeper into heaven, thank God. You know? So she was a little lady like that, and they said she was mean. You know, you didn't take a breath during Sunday school. So, yeah, so we 1908 reservation in Hollywood. You know, that's today is like our Washington. That's where the tribal headquarters is today. And one of our largest Cypress was developed, and then in the 1930s, Brighton was developed. Those are our three major reservations that, in my lifetime, that were, you know, the major players. So they finally got all the Seminoles gathered up. Seminoles, they dragged their foot. They didn't want to go on the reservation because they had a fence around it. They always was in this pre-war mode. You know, if we walk into this grounds and it's fenced, they can gather us and send us back. Because there was a guy named Leroy Collins. He kept saying, making comments about, you know, you're the wards of the federal government. You don't belong to the state of Florida. So the federal government's going to take care of you. You need to go to Oklahoma. But you don't understand, we didn't lose, you know, we won. So finally, I guess they gave him a new job chasing down communists. So left the Indians alone. That's what happened to the best American general that was in the Everglades. His name was Harney Pond. General Harney Pond. He was whipping our butts. He was packing us up and shipping us to Fort Myers and putting us on boats left and right. All of a sudden, they changed his orders. And they sent him out there to chase Sitting Bull. And they said that once he got out west, you know, he was a good general there, but if they would have left him here, I would have woke up this morning in Seminole, Oklahoma. Because I always tell everybody, I said, you know, every morning I get up, I kiss the ground because I thank God I didn't wake up in Oklahoma. You know, I woke up in Florida. And it's cold over there, too. It snows over there. I don't like that. But, you know, once they got all the Seminoles on the reservation and said, well, we got them here, what are we going to do with them? They don't have jobs. What can we do? So they partnered up with the tribal people and said, look, we're going to buy cattle. So they went out to, in Arizona, one of the Apache tribes had over 1 million head of Hereford cattle, and it was during the Dust Bowl period, St. Carlos, near Globe, Arizona. They had 1 million head of cattle, so we bought 700 with the federal government. They bought half, we bought half. And by the time they were railroaded to Cornwall, Florida. Anybody know where that is? It's between Sebring and Okeechobee. It's a long stretch of woods in there. Anyway, they unload those cattle there. It's about as far as the crows fly to the reservation. And when they unloaded them, there was only 200 living. So they had to drag off 500. So they drove 200, and those cattle that survived is the nucleus of the herds today at Brighton and Big Cypress. Since we were in the 1800s, we were pretty good cowboys. It was a cinch to just go ahead and put us back into the cattle, and which it did work. And we gradually grew into the cattle industry, and today we're on my particular reservation, which is around 37,000 acres. We raise over almost 60,000 head of mama cows. And we are like number 6 in Florida as a cattle producer. And we're like box our own beef now. You can get it, you can buy our beef on SeminoleTribeBeef.com, box beef, which is all natural, all steroid free. So we've done, cattle has been really good to us, my people. And then the Big Cypress, they have cattle too also, same type, same breed. So in the cattle, in the agriculture industry, we grow sugar cane. We have orange trees. We have our own special orange juice that we pack called Seminole brand. So also we bought into a hamburger company that was going defunct called the Hard Rock Cafe. See, everybody thinks Hard Rock, they think casinos, but those of us that know, it's the hamburger. We used to have a chairman or a chief that used to say, we're going to buy Florida back one hamburger at a time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the name went on into the casino, and so it's Hard Rock Seminole everywhere. We have almost 900 of those restaurants all over the world. Even Dubai, India, Russia. Started off with that one in England. Now France. And the Queen, she loves her Hard Rock burgers. I think she likes the horse burger better. So, with all this gaming, you would think that, that would just make our world better, but it hasn't, you got deeper pockets, so you got to have new programs, and the more successful you are, the federal government would turn their back on you. So we're almost like 90% self-contained, self-sustained from tax dollars. We take less than $10 million from federal aids. That's just so we got a finger in the pie. I mean, a lot of tribes got their whole hand in the pie. We just got our finger in it, just to say, hey, we're here, so we're gonna be dabbling, because like everybody else, that economy has hit us too. So, but luckily it's only 10%. Others has gotten whopped. Other tribes, they got really spanked. 20%, 25%. You can't live like that. So when we do our agricultural and our gaming revenues tie up, we have our own police force. I never dreamed that we would ever have Indian cops on the res. We have our own medical facilities, our own insurance company where we insure our own tribal people. They go see any doctor they want to. Even the medicine man. I use the medicine man all the time. I don't go see one that's got a college degree. I got he knows the medicine. He's going to cure you. So I go to him. My cholesterol got up a little bit. He made me up some herbs. I used it, cleared me up, and I'm good. So we have, we believe that, they used to say, save an Indian, kill an Indian, cut his hair and make him go to school and learn how to do arithmetic, writing and reading, and well, we believe in it too now. So we're sending our kids wherever they want to go, if they qualify. They want to be a lawyer, they want whatever, and they get a free boat, free ride, as long as they, keep the grades, do their part. And we don't care if they come back to the res. But guess what? The statistic says they will. They always come back. I did, I lived out there in the world for a little bit after I got my degrees. But mine was different. I got stuck on my head too many times. I used to ride bucking horses for a living at professional rodeo, so. So one day I got stuck on the head, and I woke up and said, "Darn, there's got to be an easy way. Make a living." So I went back. I already had my degree, so I just went to work. And it's strange, there's an article I wrote for the forum, and it's talking about being an Indian kid growing up on a reservation. And you don't have no directions, really. My dad died early. He didn't get to raise his 2 sons and 2 daughters, so my mom was the dad and mother. And she was illiterate. But somebody told her, education's real important, so you ain't got kids on that bus. And guarantee you, I was on that bus after I did my polar bear dip, because that's what we do, Native people. On the coldest day, we always go take a dip in the pond. So that's why I got a strong heart. So education is really important to us. A lot of us, my mom's one of the original signers of our declaration. During the 50s, when they were organizing as a Seminole tribe, they were passing around a resolution. All you had to do was say, "Yes, I'm for Seminole government," and put your name down. I see where somebody made an X, but she put her name down. Now, my community, this vote passed by 27 votes. Out of 200 Seminoles in Florida, only 27 showed up to vote. They were for it. You see, the noes would have showed up and voted. There would be no Seminole today. We would be assimilated into the public society, and the reservation would have been dropped. And we would just be mixed with you guys. And instead, those 27 people showed up, and they signed that thing, and it's in Washington. It's pretty neat to see my mom's name on there, and all her sisters, all her little scratches.
What was her name?
Arlene Johns.
Arlene?
Mm-hmm. The reason why is her brother was councilman. And, you always broke down. education, we figured that's the way we're gonna live out our, the next centuries, because we need smart people now, you know, to run our businesses, smart Indians, to do our cattle. And, you know, it's better to have your own, but, you know, we probably hire somewhere around 4,500 people in the state of Florida. And in the gaming industry, or even in our tribal. So if you're looking for a job, or you know somebody looking for a job, always check Seminole.com and hit that employee list, and it'll show you what's there. Like, you know, I have the rare opportunity to work for TIPO. That's tribal preservation, where all these archaeologists in the 40s and the 30s had went into these mounds and dug up bones, and now these bones are all over the colleges in the East. And then the federal government passed a law called Tetra. Yeah. And now that they have to give the bones back to the tribes. So the Seminole tribe is the guardian of the ancient ones. So when we find that people have bones in their closets, because we have almost 65 bones coming to this area, Patrick's Air Force Base, within the next month. Now where these people were dug out of, their mounds is gone, but there's some that wasn't, so that were protected, so we're going to place those bones in those mounds. So it's not going to be a public burial, but we have a medicine man that will control it, and he'll take the medicine with Patrick's security and do a burial. And then we got like 30 skulls at the university in Boston. We're hoping to find Osceola's head there.
Wow.
If we find his head, that will be the find of the century. And then we can put it in his grave, and he can go home. It's our belief that, you know, without your head, your universe, you're doomed to wander. And he was a warrior. He was a warrior also, and his right hand is cut off. And he's cradling the baby. I guess somebody's infant died and they didn't want to do it, so he's cradling a child. So we're hoping that those things will happen. So we're in the modern trying to solve the great mystery of who's those Indians, you know. Any questions?
What gave him the lead that his head may be in Boston?
Well, we're not really sure. We're just praying, you know, that it is. And the listings on them are Seminole warriors. We know that Whedon, when he took his head, he gave it to his cousin's family, whom Osceola had murdered. And supposedly that head went to another family, and that house burned. But we're finding a lot of his stuff that was taken off of him when he died Scotland, because a lot of his Bourgets showed up there. His knife is still with the Whedon family, the one that he supposedly stuck in the treaty, said this knife in the treaty, that supposedly that did not happen. I seen the treaty, there's no knife blade in it at all. So, yes, sir.
Is your language being kept alive? Are the young people learning the language?
Yes, we, in our charter schools, all of our schools on the reservation are charter schools. And we teach language, culture, because, like, remember I was talking about earlier how this world is just eating our kids up and just, you know, they're turning white before our eyes, you know. They're not Indian kids anymore. They look Indian, but they don't talk like Indians, you know, and the drugs and alcohol, we're not immune to that either, you know. It attacks everybody. So we're trying to do our best, you know. I learned in the village, that's the best place. I had like 7 grandmas talking at me. So, and it was till I was a teenager, so I'm fluent.
One of your reservations is down there in Miami. Where is your reservation?
Mine is near Lake Okeechobee, northwest corner. Yes.
Your tribal police, are those we call them light horsemen, like the Creeks?
No, ma'am, they're regular certified police, just like yours.
Oh,
They carry the mace, the guns, stun guns, and
okay, so they don't call them the light horsemen?
no, ma'am, they're Seminole tribal police.
Oh, okay.
You speed, you get a ticket.
Are you all okay with the Florida state being called the Seminoles?
Us Gator fans don't. But you know what? It brings recognition to our people in a positive way. And that young man rides out there, and he drops that spear in the ground and rides off. That's you know, it's just 2 ball games. I mean, 2 teams playing. Good job. But you know, it's a political game that we play with in Oklahoma. You see, they're the losers, so they're whining. So they're saying Seminole means butchers, slaughterers, killers. Actually, the word Seminole is not even an Indian word. You know, it's a Spanish word. It's an English word. It's several words tied up that's been bastardized. Cimarron in Spanish. Now it's Seminole. And the people in the Seminoles, they say, well, if you're going to call us that, we want you to call it Seminole, Seminola. So that's how that works. So when that Saturday morning or that Saturday afternoon when he rides out there, drops that spear, a lot of Seminoles are the fans. They love it. They get a lot of our students to go to college there, and you know it makes them proud. I'm glad with those Gators. Yes.
What are some examples of native plants that you may use as medicine?
Well, there's a doula.
I'm sorry, what is
Doula. That's
doula?
yeah. It's I'm trying to think. Bay leaf. The common bay leaf. That's some good stuff. You know how to use it.
Yeah.
And then there's Okwana. It's willow. There's a book you can get. It's called Healing Plants by Alice Snow. She's a native woman. She wrote a book. She teaches you how to go out in the woods and pick the herbs, how to blow it. You have to have a straw and willow leaf and blow on it and say some words and spit in it and blow it and do it. You know what? They cussed her when she wrote that book, but you know what? The authorities now are looking for, they come to the library and check that book out. Even medicine men's today. And she's gone. She's with God, you know, but I remember when she wrote that book, I said, Alice, don't do it. They're gonna crucify you. And they did, but yes.
Anybody making bread out of cookie anymore?
Nobody. It's too much work. You know, you can go Publix, get anything you want. You can hunt there all day now. Yes.
Do you have an Indian name?
Yes, I do. I've gone through 3 of them. That shows you my age. My name is John Flauba Jehois. It's a title. It means your enemy sings about you. So I must be mean. And they trickery. Hostile.
Well, I'm sure Wille Johns will be happy to answer some more of your questions if you have some. But thank you very much for being here. We have a lot of great books in our bookstore about the Seminole tribe too, the Seminole Wars, and this novel, Hollow Victory, a novel of the Second Seminole War by John and Mary Missile, an award-winning novel. So please peruse the bookstore. Barbara West will be happy to talk to you about the cruise I mentioned and membership. And thank you very much for being here this afternoon. Thank you again.
That's where I